Morning, everyone. It's just gone 12 o'clock, so let's get this session started. My name's Alan Crawford, and I work for Microsoft in the education team, so it's great to be here with you today. I can see there's a fantastic lineup of speakers across all the different channels and sessions that you've got running today, so it really is my pleasure to join you and start to have a bit of a discussion today around the Microsoft Educator community and also around hybrid learning. So the first thing I'm going to do is share my screen with you. And we can get going. There we go. So you should all now hopefully be able to see my screen. And we're going to talk for the next 30 minutes or so with some questions. Feel free to raise your hands and or come off mute and ask a question, but we'll also round up at the end with everything that we're going to discuss through today as we work our way through it. And the first thing that I want to go through is a Microsoft Educator community where we start to talk about professional development for academic staff and how we've got some courses and resources that are available to you. And then we're going to think a little bit more about hybrid learning and how that's going to have an effect on going back to college, university, school, whichever sector you want to think about in terms of education. It's going to have a huge effect on what we're thinking and doing. So MEC, or Microsoft Educator Centre, as we've now renamed it from community, is based around scenario-based training for academic staff. So this is a one-stop shop where you can go to and you can get over 600 hours worth of free training from us there, based around all sorts of different things and courses that are available to you. So the first shot I have on this particular screen is all about the landing page. And if you haven't created a profile yet, you can go there, you can sign in, create a profile using your Office 365 identity that you currently have with Grimsby, and then you can start to earn your badges. And I'm sure many of you will have already done that because of your Level Up program that you have. And I know with your Level Up program, some of that is based around using the MEC and becoming Microsoft Innovative Educators. And as you start to then go into there, you'll notice that there's lots of different courses. Some offer lots of points. They will all offer badges in some way, shape or form. So it's a bit of gamification and a bit of who's got more badges than the next person idea. And it's very easily broke down into easy chunks for you to learn and to gather information from it. So the screenshot on the right hand side about managing class workflow in this instance, using Microsoft Teams, gives you an introduction, setting up a class team, etc. And it works through it with some short text and also some short videos to watch. And then at the end of that, you would go through and you do your knowledge check. And the idea is you're getting at least 80% on that knowledge check for you to be able to get your badge. If not, you can go back and have a look at it again, and then you can retake that course again once you've gone back to find out the parts that you initially got wrong. We do have now some HE and FE focused materials. So this was something we spoke about some time ago and realized that actually much of our materials was focused around what we would call in Microsoft the K-12 market, so the younger students. So we started to produce more materials now that are based around higher education and further education. And if you look at that aka.ms/head on MEC, you'd be able to go to the page that I've taken a shot of now, where you can start to talk about and learn about collaboration and communication in HE and FE, setting up of courses, feedback and assessment, and also creating accessible courses. Now, as we start to widen this content, you'll see that there'll be more and more focused around FE and HE as we build that. It is something that is built centrally for us in Corp in the States, so we're always going to have those American voices, and we're always going to have content that is also there for K-12. And I quite often like to go and do those courses because it still is taking the principle of what we're trying to look at to help me move forward as a former educator when I was educating. We have, if any of you here are delivering any presenter-led training, a number of different courses now on the MEC where you can go and get the information. So essentially what we've decided to do is to put the decks that we use a lot during our daily work when we're talking about training and delivering things to people on the MEC, so that people can go and grab that information, repurpose it and use it for themselves. So anywhere where you find the teal background here, the greeny color background, are all presenter-led courses. And that gives you all sorts of information that you can then download. So for example, this course 4, assignments and feedback, there is a start the course button, and then at the bottom you're able to then download all the resources. Coming with the resources, you will have things like handouts, invitation emails, your presentation plans, so everything that you'd need to create a package to send out to people so you can deliver some of that training yourself. If you just want to go in and see what's in there and have a look at the deck so you can peruse through the deck yourself, then feel free to do so. It's all available online for you to be able to go and look at. Something that we're doing a lot more is creating these courses so that people can go and deliver them themselves and help others in their own organisation to learn what's going on. If you go into the MEC, we also have, apart from single courses, we have what we call learning pathways and progression. So some of those things, for example, might be getting started with OneNote. So I'm sure many of you have come across OneNote before. If you haven't, we treat it a little bit like a digital binder where you have sections and you also have pages within those sections. So if you think about how you'd take your traditional folder and then you put in your dividers in there, that's kind of that same idea going along that in a digital format. You can go to different levels on it. So one of them is the getting started, and we consider that, if you like, a sort of bronze style course. So it's just the introductory type course. And then you can get to different courses after that that may be slightly more in depth and maybe slightly more technical in what you're trying to do with it. But all the time it's building your confidence using some of the things that we have within Office 365 and helping you to start deliver in a way that's going to hopefully give you better student outcomes, but also help you rationalize the amount of time that you're spending creating and sharing things as you work your way through it. So those pathways are really helpful to help you progress and also help your students and others progress as well. We have some example courses here. So here's one of them. We have a pedagogy course there that is 21st century learning design. That's made up of about 8 hours worth of training, and that's something that we get a lot of people to look at before they try and do the Microsoft Certified Educator exam, one of the only exams that we have that you actually have to go and do a test and sit and take that to be certified, which you can then use in your LinkedIn profile, etc. We have things around student teaching and learning, like student-centered learning, creativity in the classroom, inclusive classrooms, foundations, and Office 365 Teacher Academy, for example. And then lastly, one of the ones we put up there is about saving time and personal productivity. So how do I streamline efficiency with the Office 365 apps to help me, to help you, to help everybody get some of that time back that we all know that we're always striving for, to make sure we get that good work-life balance when we're delivering during term time in particular. We have a number of different things and communities that are available and different ways of using the MEC. So we have lots of people who become certified MIEs, Microsoft Innovative Educators, and you can do that by earning 1,000 points on the MEC, and that can then lead for you to start thinking about things like an MIE expert, for example. And we've got the new badges out, so we've now got 2021 badges out, but I wasn't able to get those in time to replace for this today. So the MIE expert is something where you do a very small application. I think there's some stuff being run in different channels, a different channel here today that's going to talk a bit more about that, so I won't spend too much time on that. But it's an application where you show us how you're using your tech, and we give you recognition for how you're using that technology, and then you join a community where there's lots of people doing things. We have MIE trainers, so where people are training a number of different people in their organization or in the community where they're doing lots of work with people. And that first badge comes when you get to the 100 mark, so when you've trained 100 people. We then have the master trainer when you've trained up to 400 people in a year. And then last but not least, we have something called an MIE fellow, and that's where people apply to do some work with Microsoft in an unpaid manner, in that they will help us talk to lots of other different educators about what's going on and how that works for them. We have different communities that you can join with us as well. So if you ever wanted to join our FE and HE community, if you do join at modernedu.co.uk, you'll just say, I want to join the community. You can come and join our community and I'll add you to it. The reason I get people to apply is so it shows if I ever get audited that somebody has applied to join it and haven't just thrown lots of people in a community for them to use. And we also have some innovative educators communities in Teams. So those that are MIE experts have just joined a new community in Teams, which is run by our UK, and also another team which is run by our global education team. So it gives you access to people across the world who are able then to sit and discuss many of the things that you've got. Now, there's many resources that I think are really important in times of change for things like not only your own CPD, but also starting to think about what we're terming as hybrid learning. There are some websites here, and all of those links are live. So there's MS Remote Learning. There are webinars that we've created. We have a community, which is a remote learning community, which is one of the first communities we posted when we went down into lockdown, and also things around the MET course, Teams for Beginner, and Teams University, which is a fantastic resource for you to be able to go and look at and get some information from. That Teams University page is split into educators, is split into students, and it's also split into IT. So if there's people in terms of IT that want to think about how they can use Teams in a different way, then feel free. So let's start talking a little bit about hybrid learning. So we've got this kind of new term that we're starting to use in Microsoft a lot more. So what is hybrid learning? And I think that screen there kind of depicts that things are going to be slightly different. And certainly from my own children's experience, they're expected to go back to, in one of their cases, school, and the other case, college. The college is saying there's going to be a mix of in-person, face-to-face teaching, but there's also going to be some home learning as well, where they're expected to join a call for some sort of live lecture that we would start to think of as hybrid learning. Well, we've written, and lots of text on this slide, apologies, we've written a hybrid learning paper, and I think the important part, which is why I've pulled this out, is that we've got lots of different types of learning. We've got online learning, we've got distance learning, we've got remote learning, as we started to talk about when we first we're thinking about how things can work. We've got blended learning, flipped learning, and then hybrid learning. And that's that hybrid approach that builds on the successes of the flipped and blended, remote, distance, and online learning to intentionally create learner-centered experiences that are personalized, relevant, and engaging. So it's a slightly different way of being able to do things, and as we look at it a bit more, we're going to define it a little bit more in a moment, and then we can start to talk about it. So we define it as the integrated online instruction with traditional face-to-face class activities in a planned, pedagogical, valuable manner. Okay, so we're talking about how then, from my point of view, I think of that as certain students being in the class, certain students not being in the class, and how do we bring those two together so it helps people understand what we're talking about. So as you think about it, if we think about it in this way, and these are some of the slides we've taken from I've taken from some of the EduDay webinars that we've been running. We've got synchronous learning, asynchronous learning on the vertical, and on the horizontal, some face-to-face and some virtual. And we see hybrid learning fitting right in the middle of there, and how we were able to offer this environment that helps people to access learning and keep them moving forward as we change things. And I would say that we've got 5 elements of hybrid learning. And we've got our learning environment, whatever flavor they may be. So for me, I would talk about Teams a lot, obviously. I know you have Canvas at the college and various other different tools that you're using, and how Teams is fitting into that. We then talk about this class community and how do we bring this vibrant community to life? How are we structuring the environment that we've got to make people feel welcome, to make them feel engaged in what we're doing, and give them a platform to use? We then start to think about things like lesson design. How does the design of the lesson help to bring everybody together? How does it give everybody a voice so that they can do what they've got to do, and engage in that interactivity? So what is it they're going to do that's going to make it interactive for them, so that we're bringing those that are face to face with those that are virtual, and where do we do that, and how does it work? And last but not least, thinking about assessment and feedback. So how are we able then to assess those students? How are we able to give feedback for those students, either in a formative way or a summative way? What is it that we can do, and how can we help them do that? And we've got lots of tools, obviously, that would help us within Office 365 to be able to do that. Microsoft Teams is one of them. So how do we use that whole digital platform? Again, I'm not going to go through everything on this slide, but I'm happy to provide a PDF of these slides after so that people can then have it and work with it and go through it at their own time. But we've got lots of tools that are available to help us use this digital platform to bring hybrid learning to life. So we've got Teams, we've got email, we've got Stream, that virtual that video platform that we're able to use. We've got things like SharePoint and Yammer where we can create collaboration and different communities that people can do things. One of the things I think that's got a huge part to play is Microsoft Forms and how we can do surveys and quizzes and get that feedback or do longer pieces of work with them. We've got Planner where you can start to plan those projects out. So you might put all of your learning in a plan this year, for example, on Planner that all the students can see, they can see what's coming. And never to leave out something like learning tools. So where we have the ease of access tools built into Windows 10, but also into Office 365 that allows students to use things like Immersive Reader and Translator and all of the great tools that we've got that are available for people to have that and gain access. But we're not just thinking about students or staff, we're also thinking about how does this give a voice to people like families and guardians. And if you're working with students where you're having to keep families and guardians involved, we've got things like the weekly email updates if you're using Microsoft Teams and the assignments piece within there. We've got some formal communications through the email, for example, and we can always build up feedback from parents through using a survey through forms and sending out a link to gather that information if we want to. So we have so many different ways of doing things and so many different ways of it working for everyone else within the whole organization, because we're looking at how this is working right across that organization for everyone to be able to use it. So if you looked at it from a sort of further education and higher education lens, we drop from the 5 elements to the 4 elements. And the way we start to condense that slightly is about course design. So we're not talking necessarily about lesson, we're talking about course design, we're talking about content delivery, what medium you're using when you're delivering that content, whether it's something that's interactive like a stream video with a form embedded in it where you're doing a little bit of observation with people and asking them stuff. And then we talk about that engagement and interactivity still. So we're still trying to make sure that it's highly engaging because we know learners will learn better when everything is engaging, and also about assessment and feedback and how we're doing that. So it's not so different, but it covers the whole spectrum of how we're thinking about education with the 5 in K-12 to the 4 elements in further and higher education as we change the way that we deliver slightly. And what was it that we would use predominantly to deliver? Well, we can see it as 4 things in particular. We see it as using Microsoft Teams as that kind of single lens, that place that everyone can go to and use things. We see Microsoft Stream being really important for having those live lessons, if you like, and the hybrid learning part. So if a student were to miss it, they can go back and they can go and revisit. So we're not just talking about the creation of videos as content, we're talking about the recording like we're doing today of the session and making it available for people to go and view later, to search, to get a transcript, to find the points that they want to. We're talking about how we're using PowerPoint and the introduction of something like PowerPoint Live. If you've not seen that, I advise you all go and have a look, and how you can make your PowerPoint live very easily with something as simple as a QR code so that students can scan and then they jump into that. Using things like Sway where you can put information and make the information and come to life and work with it in a very simple file format that you can share really easily with people inside and outside your organization so that they are able to access that content that you've got and made available to you. And then as we move on from there, we start to think about, as we break this down, that engagement and interactivity in higher education. So one of the things we've been talking a lot about lately is actually, instead of using the general channel, why don't we make an announcements channel where students know they can go to? And here's an example of a team that's set up. Now, you don't have to set it up like this. You don't have to use the numbers for the channels. It's just one way of doing it. So it keeps it in a logical order. So it's not necessarily always alphabetical, for example. And up there at the top, you've got the announcements channel. And that's a really simple place to put so that people know you're always going to announce in that area. And that way they can go and find them and see what the last announcements were. were, and it leaves that general channel for other things. It might be that that's a place that you actually decide that people can't post in the general channel, and it's only places that you'll put information. But announcements can be really simple and powerful to keep everybody in the know and keep them knowing where they're going to look. If we think about that engagement and interactivity again, where are we going to do this engagement? Where are we going to have that interactivity? Well, it's going to occur for us in Teams chat. It's going to occur where students are discussing what's going on, how it's working for them. They're going to look at things like Microsoft Forms and have a poll, for example. So you can do a quick poll, ask them a question when you're delivering, just to check that understanding for them. Or even something as powerful as Flipgrid. And if you've not seen Flipgrid or used Flipgrid yet, it's a really nice way of getting feedback or starting a discussion where students can go in and they can record short videos and they can give a verbal response to what they're doing. Some students don't like to talk verbally in Flipgrid, so they might use cards or pieces of paper with stuff written on it. So it gives them that opportunity to be able to talk in a way that they want to, using their own voice or delivering how they feel comfortable, so that we get that community building up. And we use Flipgrids quite often to get good examples of what educators are doing. We'll use that for something like a team scenario, for example. And it allows us to build these different boards that people can then go and access and see what others around the country are doing at this particular time. We talk a lot about things like checking student engagement. So you can all, if you have a class team available to you while you're delivering, you can all add the Insights tab. That Insights tab is going to tell you when students have been into the team and when they've communicated or whether they've last been active. And if you're using assignments, you can get your average grade and your on-time assignments and how long to feed back. But if you're not using that part, then you're able still to see if they're digitally active. You're able to see what sort of communication activities gone on inside of that. So you can see how many messages have been shared and what's happening in different channels, for example. So powerful. And then only last week we announced the ability for people to start looking across teams to see what's happening. Still in preview, in public preview now, so it can be added, but that will give you the opportunity to have a look at particular students across a multiple amount of different teams to see how they're engaging. So it's great for those people who are looking at pastorally. Is a student engaged with us, or is it just this one team they're not engaging with? What do we need to do? Do we need to intervene now to help them out and keep them on track and help them with what they're doing? We've got things like setting up your virtual office hours. So some people are talking about having these virtual office hours if students are remotely learning and in this hybrid mode, and setting that up and saying, okay, I'm available from 3 to 5 drop-in time here. Come and ask questions, come and talk to me. We can have an individual meeting at another time. I've seen people using Microsoft Bookings to set up a calendar for people to be able to get access to and work with at that particular time. But it's a really simple way, again, of students knowing where they have to go, what they have to do to get access to you, to talk to you, to make sure that you are there so that you can discuss things with them. So it's again adding to this. As we look at that then, so how does this work in terms of what can we do next? So we have a hybrid learning course on the MEC. You can see there that I highlighted it. And if you go to aka.ms/hybrid learning, you can go straight to that course and you can start to learn more about hybrid learning and the scenarios that we've quickly gone through today in the half hour that we have available to us. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I noticed there's 5 minutes left, so I'm happy to stop talking, because otherwise I'll just keep going and going and going, and take any questions if anybody would like to ask any questions or ask anything about Microsoft Office 365 in general that we can then discuss until we finish at 12:30 today. A silence. There's always a silence. Happy to take any questions at all if anyone's got any. If there are none, then I'm happy to give you 5 minutes back before you have to jump on to your next session. Oh, I can see somebody's just written something there. Thanks, Pauline. I hope you enjoy exploring it and having a look at it. And hopefully it'll be useful to you to help you sort of move on as well and think about how things are going to be different as we go back now. So where are Microsoft with the breakout rooms? Okay, so breakout rooms are currently in private preview. So there are probably about 100 or so customers around the world who are currently working with breakout rooms right now, which is going to give us some good feedback on anything that's not quite right as we fix those extra little things before we put it into general announcement. Safe to say it should be here very shortly. Hopefully, we're saying early autumn, so that should give you a bit of an idea if you think about the months that we've got. So it'll be here very shortly, and everyone will start to then have it as it goes general announcement for everyone to be able to use.
I have a question, please.
No problem.
My question revolves around Microsoft Access. And is it possible in the settings to have it open in app automatically?
Microsoft Access from where? Sorry, where are you opening it from?
So your files. The idea is we're working from OneDrive.
Yeah.
The files are in OneDrive. You want to open it, but you want it to open automatically in app, not online. So
are you, if you're trying to do that at the moment, are you currently clicking on the 3 ellipsis and choosing open in app from the file? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you would do normally.
Yes.
The question is, can it be defaulted?
No, not at the moment, I'm afraid. It's like that for.
There's an idea for you.
Yes. One I hear a lot from people who use OneDrive, which is fantastic. And I will certainly feed it back, and hopefully we may be able to move on that at some point.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks.